You're listening to an AINC original podcast. We believe you don't have to do life without a compass. Let us be your guide on this amazing journey. Welcome to Navigating Life with Vision Loss.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for Navigating Life with Vision Loss. I'm Kim Wardlow, your host. I'm also the Executive Director at Aftersight. So I always want to give a shout out and thank everybody at Aftersight that supports this program and makes it possible. So thank you to everybody there. And I also want to be sure that you have our feedback phone number and email. So if you have any questions or comments about this podcast or any of our podcasts you may be listening to, you can reach us at 720-712-8856, or the email is feedback@aftersight.org. So we're continuing talking about relationships. I have Charlie Kramer is with me again today. Hey, Charlie.
Hey. Hi.
So I'm excited to be talking to you again today. We're going to be talking about other types of relationships, but just a recap for folks of what we talked about last time. We were talking about romantic relationships and what's important in terms of someone being accepting of your blindness or your disability and other just general things, whether you have a disability or not, that can be important to folks. And I know one comment that you made when we were talking about that hit both myself and our podcast producer, Jonathan, that we both really liked was you said if you've had a long-term relationship that's ended and you're looking at a new relationship, what you weren't getting out of the original relationship might not be what you need in the new relationship, and to really be focused on that current relationship. Is there anything that you want to mention, or maybe that you thought of afterwards and thought, "Oh, I wish I'd said this"?
Yeah, definitely. There's a resource that I work with all my clients on that are interested in love and relationships, and it's something that I learned from my previous therapist, Emily Orm. Shout out, Emily, if you happen to be listening. You're the best. Basically, she gave me this exercise of what's called a love list, and it clearly spells out what you need from a relationship, what you want, and what is not workable. Okay. So you can kind of do this in 3 categories, and I'd really recommend it for someone that's getting into a relationship, or even someone who's like, am I getting what I want out of this relationship right now? And have your partner do it as well. And don't do it next to them. Do it separately, and then bring it to each other and have an open conversation about what's on the list and what's comparable. So the 3 categories. First one is non-negotiables. Okay. This is like mostly positive traits and big subjects like politics, religion, children, finances, family, right? You got to be on the same page with those. It's like morals and values. Okay. Most of those things you're going to have to be in agreement with. Maybe 1 or 2 of them you can say, look, we can work on this, but you have to talk about how can we work on it. The next one is preferences. So like hobbies, interests, cultural tendencies and values, right? So this is a good example of like, I'm a really big Manchester United soccer fan, football fan, right? Greta, my partner, tolerates that and accepts that I love that and will know not to bother me during the game or even let me talk about it for a hot second. Does she like it? Not nearly as much as me, but that's okay. You know, we also really love music and we do connect on that, right? So we have things that we like and other things about each other that maybe we don't connect with, but we're willing to learn about it. Okay. That's preferences. The last one is non-workable traits. This can be things like them being defensive or projecting or, them having different commitment or attachment styles than you, all these different things. Are they a fixer or a controller? Or maybe it can be not fully accepting of my blindness, right? Write these things out. Get really clear on it. You don't have to do this with every single one of your relationships. but we started the last episode talking about getting clear on your needs and what you want. This is a very good way to start.
And knowing your needs and what you want would apply to other relationships as well, not just your romantic ones. So as
100%.
we're talking today about other types of relationships that we have, there's so many. Our parents, siblings, various family relationships, friends, coworkers, all those different relationships that we encounter. We talked last time within the context of romantic relationships of their acceptance of their blindness or their disability and their partners, but how does that also play into other types of relationships as well?
Mm-hmm. I think the easiest thing to do here is just to give some examples. Okay, so let's talk about family. Now, the person who raised you is going to have a lot of opinions about what you want to do with your disability and how you want to experience it. And what you want might differ from the way that you were raised. And that can create challenges and can create issues. Even little things like, my kid is not blind, they're not visually impaired, they only have a vision problem, right? And then you grow up and you're like, hey, mom, dad, no, actually, I'm legally blind and blindness is a spectrum. And I feel really good just saying I'm blind, right? And they need to be okay with that. And you got to talk about those things and work through them in your own time. That's one aspect of it. And that's more emotional than anything else. Then there's more practical relationships like your career, where I can't do my job if I don't have these accommodations, right? Not if I don't have these accommodations, I'm going to be a terrible employee and you have to spend thousands of dollars just to accommodate me, which is false, right? It's no, I just need a screen reader to be able to do my job properly. And I'm going to be an incredible employee like I am. I'm just going to shift the way I do my work a little bit. And thank you for supporting me with that. It's more structured. And the way that you communicate that is very different. And then there's friends like, hey, thank you so much for caring about me and my eyesight. Also, I don't want you to ask how my eyes are doing. I'm blind. They're bad. So you got to be really clear about what you want from those different relationships, and the way that you communicate within those categories of relationships differs. And it should differ as well.
What about setting boundaries within relationships? And I'm guessing that differs as well, depending on the type.
Oh, yeah, it definitely does. It definitely does. It also, it depends on the type of relationship that you have with the person too, right? A parent-child relationship is different for each parent and child. I'm not even talking in the same household. So like I'm saying, Kim, one of your relationships with your parents is likely very different than the relationship that I have with one of my parents. And I would not recommend that you handle certain boundaries with your parents in the exact same way that I do with mine. You have to take in the context, and you have to be willing to understand what setting that boundary will do and how it will impact the relationship. And you have to be accepting of those possibilities, and always come from a place with boundaries of, I'm setting this boundary because it's what I need and what's best for me, but it's also best for everyone involved. Whether or not they understand that is not important. And I'm going to communicate that boundary with kindness, and I'm not going to over-explain it. Boundaries don't need to be understood. They need to be respected. Sometimes that does shift though, because if it's your best friend and you really thrive on personal relationships, if you just say that personal relationship, right? And really deep conversations with that friend, if you just say to them, I don't need you to understand, I just need you to respect this. If you just say that, that's going to probably cause some damage.
Right.
And you might say,
they might want to understand.
Yes. But you need to know, do I want them to understand? Right? So it really depends. And boundaries are definitely very multifaceted, but the core understanding of a boundary is a limit on an action or activity that best serves your needs and the needs of everyone involved, right? Because the idea is when you are fully supported and your needs are met, that allows you to show up in your best, healthiest, most productive way. And that then benefits everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if your boundary is a punishment, that's not a boundary, it's a consequence.
Well, and I think boundaries change too. If you're in a parent-child relationship, as that child gets older, whether you're the child or you have a child,
Yes.
that changes, and setting those boundaries to establish your own independence and a little bit of separation into your own life becomes really important as well.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember too, how to first start by setting the boundary. And the boundary being set is different than holding the boundary. So, when you set a boundary, it's a personal choice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to allow people to do this. I'm not going to allow them to say this to me. When you set that, it's not going on a broadcast to everyone's cell phone in the entire world. Like they probably don't know that you set that boundary.
Right.
Holding the boundary is when you actively advocate for yourself, right? And when somebody crosses that boundary in the moment, how do you respond to that in a way that they respect what you need and everyone comes away feeling good about it? Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's very, very important. And one of the biggest ways that we set boundaries is by getting in touch with what really annoys us. What frustrates you the most?
Right.
With the way that people treat you, with the way that you do things. One of them might be, I'll just give you an example of one of my boundaries. No one is allowed to ask me about my blindness on the street that I don't know if I'm not open to talking about it. I'm in complete control of with who and when I want to talk about my blindness. So I'll give you an example. The person on the street who comes up to me and says, "Hey, I noticed that you're using a cane. That's so cool. My grandpa also was blind. And what type of blindness do you have?" Right? The intentions are incredible. They're so curious. Also, I want to go get my lunch. And I don't want to talk to them right now, and that's totally okay. So they didn't know that that's my boundary, and I don't need to let them know, you crossed my boundary, sir, and you have made me feel uncomfortable. That's not holding a boundary, okay? The boundary being held is, hey, thanks so much for asking. I'm really glad you're curious. I'm actually on the way to go get my lunch right now, and this is just me personally, right? I'd say, but I have a whole Instagram page and a whole social media page where you can learn anything you want about it. Just follow Charlie Kramer Vision. I hope you have a great day. See you later. And then I'd walk away, right? I didn't make them feel like an idiot. I respected my boundary. And I said, hey, thanks for being curious, because genuinely, that's awesome, right? So that's easier because you don't know the person.
Yes.
When it's in your relationship, you may need at times for them to understand, and you may need to be more cognizant of their feelings. Not always, sometimes. So a boundary is never explaining why. It's just saying, this is what I need. Thank you so much. And making it not a big deal.
Well, and if you have a person in your life, somebody that you do know, say a friend, and you've thought about the things that annoy you, and you realize this friend really does this particular thing that annoys you, and that you need to set a boundary. You set that boundary, and that the first time that friend comes up against that boundary, like you said, they may not realize you've set it, but also if it wasn't there before and they've thought, well, but I've always done this, or I've always asked this, what's different now? Trying to deal with that without feeling like you have to over-explain things.
Totally. So let's give the example of your friends making jokes about your blindness. And they make another joke and you're like, dang, I set the boundary. I don't want other people to joke about my blindness, but I'm comfortable making jokes about it. How do I explain that to them? Well, first of all, it's not an explanation. It's a boundary response. So you're going to say, hey, I know previously I was cool with people making jokes about my blindness. Recently, I've kind of come to this understanding that I don't actually like it as much. So moving forward, I might make jokes about it, but if you could not make jokes about it, that would make me feel more comfortable, and I appreciate you understanding. That's it. And then they could say, oh my gosh, I didn't mean to. I'd be like, don't worry about it. Like, let's keep watching the football game. Or don't worry about it. Like, what are we going to get for lunch, right? Move it on quickly. What you don't want is a 10-minute long conversation about why, if it's something that is not that big of a deal. Because then it just makes everybody feel icky and weird and it gets convoluted. It's not necessary. Just keep it moving. If they understand it, even if they don't fully get it, it's okay. Let them get it in their own time. As long as they respect it, it's totally fine.
So can we shift a bit? And you kind of alluded to like the person that comes up to you on the street and asks you questions. There are also those people that come up to you on the street or in other, in your workplace or other areas of your life. And their intent is to be helpful, but they're just a little bit too helpful, or it's help that you don't really need or want, and dealing with some of those types of things. And again, if it's somebody you don't know, that might be one thing. But if it's a coworker that you're going to have to interact with at your new place of work, and definitely how you deal with those types of things.
Yeah. What I always teach my clients is to remember that if you allow them to help you, not only are they crossing the boundary, you're allowing them to cross the boundary, right? You are connected in that scenario and have the opportunity to hold it. So first and foremost, be really clear in the moment of what you do and what you don't want. So if someone's saying, hey, I noticed that you printed out some things at the copy machine. I'm going to go over there. Let me get it for you. Right? I'm like, wow, that's very nice. Also, I kind of needed to get up and take a walk. And so you say, hey, thanks so much. That's really nice of you. I'm actually going to get up and go take a walk. I may not be able to see it right away, but I don't really care. I'm totally happy. I'm just going to go over. Their response to that might go, are you sure? I'm very willing. And you don't have to fumble around. You just interrupt them. Kindly interrupt them. Be like, hey, don't worry about it. I'm just going to go and do it. Thanks so much. See you later. Leave. Okay. And keep repeating your boundary kindly over and over again, but shorter and shorter each time. Right? So the point where it's like, hey, I've told you a few times, I've got it. Thanks so much. See you later. I'll see you at lunch. Bye. Okay. You don't want to ever go into the explanation of, don't worry, I can do it because I can still walk with my cane and I can get over there by myself and blah, 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 blah. No, they don't deserve that. And it's not a good use of anybody's time. Just hold the boundary. And it's so important to remember that not everyone is like telepathic. They're not going to know your boundaries, and they might have been taught that helping out a blind person is a really nice thing to do. And that's okay. You want to recognize that they're trying to help. You don't want to make them feel bad about that. And you also want to hold your boundary at the same time. All those things can exist in one moment, and everyone can walk away feeling pretty good about it. Not everyone's going to feel amazing.
That's not really your job to have to make everybody feel amazing.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But I do think it's your job to at least recognize their intentions.
Yes. Yes. And as you said, to try to be kind when you're communicating the boundary. If you've communicated this boundary multiple times, and as you said, you're trying to make it shorter, but you're holding it, and you just have somebody that continues to step across that boundary, and it's just really not okay. How do you communicate that when you maybe need to step that up a level?
So one of the most powerful things that you can do in this situation is address the boundary when they are not crossing it. Let me explain.
Oh, okay.
If you only respond when they continually cross the boundary, they're still in their mindset of, I got to help them. I got to do this. They want it this way. They can't take themselves out of the situation, right? So you go up to them separately if they keep doing it. And you say, hey, I just want to let you know that we've had the conversation a few different times. It's starting to make me very uncomfortable, and I wanted to come up and address it with you directly. Please stop asking me this. Please stop doing this. And depending on the scenario, like if it's at work, right, you could say, if it continues, I don't want to, but I will go to HR, right? If you need to do it, you can. Or if it's a friend, you can be like, you keep doing this. It's making me uncomfortable. Please stop. It's impacting my desire to hang out with you. And I love hanging out with you. And I really want to keep hanging out with you. So please respect my boundary. Please respect what I want. Right? When you address it outside of the scenario happening itself, they may have more ability to actually reflect and realize what they're doing. And you might be dealing with someone who doesn't have the ability to reflect and actually respect your boundary.
Right. That can happen.
That can happen, and it does happen. When that does happen, you do get HR involved. When that does happen, you need to decide, how important is this to me? If this is a friend or a family member, is the boundary that they're crossing so vital to me that I can't continue to have a relationship with them in this way? You don't have to go you don't have to say, that's it.
Yeah, never
right?
speak to you again.
I'm done with you, right? That's not healthy either, right? But what framework can you limit it? Or what framework can you step back in the relationship so that you can take a step away and say, look, just for my own health, because you continue to do this, I'm going to have to, interact with you in a different way. What's not healthy is to go from 0 to 100 and say, I'm never speaking to you again, unless that person has been physically, emotionally, or sexually abusive to you. Mm-hmm. If that is a boundary that's crossed, please feel free to never speak to them again. And that is completely acceptable. Okay. And if you feel like the way that they've treated you makes you completely unable to have a healthy relationship with them moving forward, I also want you to be respecting of that, of yourself. Mm-hmm. And at least for a period of time or forever, take time away from that relationship. And you can say it like that. Hey, just for now, I'm letting you know that I'm taking time away from this relationship because of the continued lack of acknowledgement of my boundaries and what I've been expressing to you. I hope that it can change at some point. I hope that, there might be a chance for us to, come to an understanding and move forward in the relationship. And right now I need a break. Or we could say, until further notice, I don't feel comfortable speaking with you. It depends, but you have to weigh what feels right to you in that moment. But I'd always go slowly in your mind and in your thoughts of what the next step is, rather than just go to, I'm done with them. Forget about it. Right. Which I think is quite popular nowadays with cancel culture. Right. It's a popular thing. That's not holding boundaries. That's avoidance. Boundaries are delicate and nuanced and challenging. That's not nuanced. That's pull the plug. Now, sometimes, like I said, that is the necessary thing to do. And if you're doing that and it's necessary, I support you. Make sure that it's necessary before you do it. Right.
Yeah, because just reacting out of frustration or anger might cost you more than you really want to pay in terms of losing a relationship if it's something that might be worked out. Obviously not those extreme things, but
yes.
So as we're talking about boundaries, as people are thinking about their boundaries, maybe thinking about, do I need to set some boundaries, reset some boundaries? Can you help us define or give examples of like what are healthy boundaries? Just as you said, well, it's not so healthy just to say, oh, well, you crossed this boundary 5 times, so you're out.
Yeah. It could be, though.
Right.
5 times could be a lot. It depends on the boundary, right? If the boundary was, please don't ask me invasive questions about my disability at work.
Well,
right?
Then, yeah.
Well, sure. Okay. You could decide that really impacts me and I'm not talking to this person again. Or if that was me, I would just say, hey, like, if you keep asking me invasive questions about my disability, like, I'm going to talk to HR. Yeah. Like, I'm done with this. Like, please stop. Right. It depends on the person. But if that 5 times is they've touched me inappropriately 5 times, it only needs to be 1 time,
right.
So it does depend. But you were asking about creating the new boundaries, correct?
Correct. So if we're trying to have healthy boundaries, or we're trying to think about, are the boundaries that I've set, people seem to keep crossing, are my boundaries that I've set, are they healthy boundaries? Trying to look at the boundaries that either that we have or that we feel like we need to establish.
Right. I think it's a balance, because the idea of a healthy boundary is that you're setting the boundary to keep your mental and physical state healthy. Now, people grow over time. So something that was a healthy boundary for you previously, you may have done the work and now you're at a different place. Not everyone, not every boundary, but maybe you're in a different place now and you feel like, they can ask me deep questions about my blindness. I'm in a place where I really want to answer every question I get about that. That could be a personal choice. And that could be okay. And then the boundary shifts to people can ask me questions and I'm open to sharing about it only when I'm open to it. So it's about getting really clear and knowing that you're constantly doing the work and opening up. And that's why the boundaries can constantly move and shift, right? But again, like, setting the boundary itself is all about not only benefiting you, but everyone involved. Because when we go back, we keep talking about the invasive questions boundary. It's just our example of the show, okay? But for example, if that person's asking you invasive questions and you're crossing that boundary and speaking about it and telling them your whole life story every time and talking to them about the grave details, maybe that's making you feel really unsafe because you don't want them to know that personal information about you.
Right.
And maybe it's making you feel unseen because all they know about you is your disability and they don't treat you as a person. And then it's also not benefiting them because all they know about you is your disability and not you as a person. So the healthy boundary is healthy for everyone. And that's important too. If the boundary that you're setting only benefits you, truly, right? Only benefits you and makes you feel more entitled to a behavior that is actually unhealthy, you need to really take a step back and work on that. However, the boundary still may be healthy for the time being so that you can do that work and become more safe to be able to open up and start having those conversations in a different way.
Well, I think it's really a complicated thing. I appreciate you pointing out some of those nuances, that it's not, A or B, it's A and B and C and D and whatever else, depending on the situation and the person, because there's so many complexities to it. And I think that's why we all struggle with our relationships at some point in time, is because they're not simple.
Exactly. And the last thing I'll say on this is just, this is why working with professionals is so important. Because as much as I want you to gain amazing boundaries, the likelihood is that you're going to listen to this podcast and you're going to feel empowered and inspired to go out there and hold more boundaries. But if you just do it from one podcast, you may not create the boundaries that you fully need. Maybe there's deeper work, and talk to a therapist who understands you. Work with a coach that specializes in boundaries or specializes in disability. Someone that's going to understand you and help guide you, because it can be really challenging to take on that work on your own. it's so important to be able to do that in tandem and in teamwork with other people, especially when you're integrating that into your personal relationships.
Charlie, is there anything else as we're drawing to a close that you would like to tell our listeners or insights into relationships, our everyday? I guess what I think of as our everyday, our friends and family and coworkers, those relationships.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about boundaries. If you only focus on boundaries, you won't be having a lot of fun. Have fun. Enjoy your life with the people around you and make the boundaries quick, because the more time that you get to spend experiencing the joys of life, the happier and more fulfilled you're going to feel. And at the end of the day, that's what relationships are there for, to feel fulfilled, to create connections, and to feel supported. And the boundaries are simply a reminder of how to best do that. But if they're the main focus, you won't be enjoying your relationships as much as you deserve to. So don't forget to do things that are enjoyable, that are fun, that are silly, that are deep, and to be willing to set boundaries and work in tandem with the people in your life with those boundaries while you're having that fun.
And being able to build those relationships, as you said, to have joy and fun in your relationships as well.
Exactly.
Well, Charlie, thank you so much for joining us for 2 episodes of Navigating Life with Vision Loss. We really appreciate it. I feel like we could do a whole nother segment on building relationships now that we've talked about boundaries. And others may also feel that way or may want to get in contact with you. I don't think I mentioned in this episode, Charlie specifically is a life coach for folks that have disabilities and brings that to his work. So Charlie, if folks want to reach out to you, what is the best way? The best way
is to ask me invasive questions. I'm kidding. The best way to get in contact with me is to send me a message on Instagram, or you can just go to my website, www.charliekramervision.com. And if you're interested in working together or with one of our coaches or anyone that we work with, you can send us a message. You can fill out an intro call form and we'll get on that call, totally free to you. Talk about what you're struggling with, talk about your goals and where you want to go, and get really clear on what the next steps are and send you in that direction, whether it's working with us or with someone or something else. We just want to see you succeed. So come on over and have that call with us, and we look forward to meeting you. That's great. And Charlie works with all kinds of goals and issues. We've been talking about relationships this month, but there's so much more than that, obviously. So whether it's employment or all the different topics that you might need a life coach for. So yeah. And if you're curious and you're not sure, still get on the call, because we'll help you take that next step and find where the right space is for you if it isn't us. And if it is, we're excited. It'd be awesome. Great. Well, thanks again. And it's been so fun talking to you. I appreciate it. And thank you to our listeners as well. Again, if you have comments or suggestions or questions for us, you can reach us at 720-712-8856 or email-wise, feedback@aftersight.org. We appreciate hearing from you, and we hope the information that you received today helps you navigate your life with vision loss.